How's it going, everybody? My name is Dushan Williams. This is my co-host Christopher Mercado, and welcome to Gaming Over 30. Today, we're going to be talking about really something kind of simple. We're not really here in that aspect. We're not live right now. We're just kind of have a good recording and stuff. And me and Chris were just kind of looking at some video ideas that we had, and I thought, we should have something to talk about genres. And so, Chris, I want to ask you today. What's your most played drama? What's the one that you really like the most?
The one I like the most is definitely going to be your Metrovania games. Kind of going around. It's kind of like a platformer slash adventure game where you run around with your character. 9 times out of 10 is in third person, and while you're in third person, you go through corridors, different levels, and as you go through these levels, they always have extra things that you can do, but you can't figure them out at that point in time. So it's like, oh, I found this thing, but I can't get to it yet. And then later on throughout the game, you find the ability, you find the item that you need to upgrade yourself. So that way you go back to that section and you already did all the hard parts of it. So you kind of just stroll through it because you're already kind of in an OP mode at that point. And then you get that item, which sometimes even gives you better stuff or makes things even better. And it kind of just goes along that aspect kind of cycle. You go around and around, you do that, and after that, you end up finding some boss here, boss there, and there's different ways to do it. But that's definitely one of those like my top genre of games to play all the time. What about you?
For me, like it's always used to be like a RPG, especially like action RPGs, and I still think it's kind of more to that regard because in a lot of cases, like I'm still a real big story buff. I feel like you want a great main character, you want kind of like a reason to be there, something that kind of ties together, and then something that kind of gives it a great ending, so that way you can actually remember it as years go by. And then I kind of go to something where like gameplay is a little bit more secondary, but like still very important to where it's like I want to at least have fun playing, especially if it's going to be like a long game. Like sometimes, just like the regular, like, click and go kind of stuff doesn't really work out as well. But I've noticed like some of the games later on, kind of like how Final Fantasy VII Remake, Tales of Arise, like those games, they have really great story. They kind of flush out their characters, and you don't mind playing it for long term because like okay, like the gameplay gets better, you start getting more attacks, you start getting more people to kind of do different things, and the difficulty kind of just matches that. And so that's kind of like what I was always kind of really into. But I think like kind of more action adventure games in the sandbox area, it's kind of like the games like they're kind of like the isekai of anime, like they're just the guilty pleasure of it. Like some of them are just like, oh, check marks, here's this, go to this area, take over it, see what this person needs to do. It gets monotonous, but you're like, oh, but I kind of like this because it encapsulates all the other stuff I do like about RPG, of some most of the time having a good story to kind of get you past to it. Some of the time having like side quests that you can really go into, be like, yeah, no, I like like I kind of like this little story, this little deviation of going through it, and kind of really get to knowing like what the city is, like who lives here, and stuff like that. So I kind of really like those kind of genres. That's kind of like my favorite because like they allow me to kind of explore, really do care kind of about like what's actually happening in the game.
Yeah, I would be. I think I have a hard like decision when it comes to my backup and stuff like that after Metrovanias, because I'm assuming Metrovanias are just something people either they don't sell a lot or they're kind of hard to make because you don't get a huge amount of them like being put out all the time and stuff like that. And it's been kind of through the test of time you see that happening. Where you don't see a lot of them out there, and so my go-to is usually either an action adventure or RPG. And then it just when it comes to RPG, I've usually been more of a fan of the JRPG aspect than the Western RPG when it comes to those. That's where I differ in that aspect
Yes.
of that. I've definitely the past, honestly, probably the past 5 to 6 years, I've really been doing more Western RPGs so I can try to get into them. And I've been starting to see the appeal. I see why people like them. I see why I like them and what I enjoy from them at that point. And so they've really been a genre that's grown on me.
And I kind of agree with that. Like, I think when I say J or RPG, I always kind of really mean JRPG for the most part,
Yeah.
because most like Western ones are like games that have like RPG elements, so they're like they can technically play in it. Like how some companies like, well, I'm not this. I'm actually a tech company because we care about the software, some kind of stuff that they try to get around. It's like they could fit in the category because they're using parts of that to kind of make their experience better. But I always kind of really fall out to what's the default content. And a lot of times, when I talk about like how like really caring about the main character, I shouldn't have to care about the main character because I'm the main character. Like I should care about the main character because you actually wrote him in there well, and that
Right.
he's not they're not insufferable, or they're not a pansy the entire time. Like there's some kind of growth happening in the character. When it's just you, it's just kind of like, oh well, it's just I'm trying to make sure that it's me making those decisions to make it seem like it's more realistic, which is fine. I think some people kind of like that, but I do feel like I'm not going to remember this game as much if it's like, oh, this I'm just a random guy kind of sitting there, kind of doing all the stuff, whatever. Like I like games like Cyberpunk, where
Yeah.
your main character is V. He can look like whatever it is, but he still fits in the world. He still has his preconceptions. He has all this, and then you just kind of change what you say, and it affects the game. So like you kind of get both worlds, but this person exists. He exists in this game, regardless of how you kind of look at him. And the same thing for like Hogwarts Legacy and some of those other games where you can change the main character, but the main character still has his voice lines, has something kind of go with it, so you can still identify him as a separate character, even if you want him to look like you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say the same thing, probably especially because I've been playing it a lot now. It's like, but Cyberpunk I think is they've done probably the best way I've enjoyed a Western RPG, having like a character be there, and that character is a person who is in the story, and then you get to kind of choose how this character reacts to kind of put your own input in how you play the game and how you would do it as that character. But I think it does a way better job to be like from a writing aspect to have that character be someone instead of have that character be, oh, that's you're that person, you're gonna do it. And it's like, okay, cool, but my character doesn't talk 9 times out of 10 or doesn't have very much dialogue, or if it is, it's kind of word bubbles and you just choose them, and it's like that's not as fun as having like a voice actor voice the things you say, because it's cool. Like as I've been playing through Cyberpunk, I get to choose the what's it called, the things, my choices on it, and then the voice actor says what you choose, but also adds like a little spin to it, because you know what I mean. It just adds a flavor to the character, the reaction to it, and stuff like that. And I appreciate it a lot more because I enjoy the game a lot more.
Yeah. And so it's not like that we don't like them or don't really kind of respect kind of Western RPGs. I
No,
just
yeah,
but like there's just some stuff where it's all like I like the stuff that they're really good at, and I kind of like those ideas, and I think that's when like the gameplay kind of starts excelling a little bit when it comes like the more Western RPGs, because that's what I think a lot of people do like Western RPGs. They really like the more gameplay side of it and stuff like that. Like normally the story not like it takes a seat back, but it's more lore than it is like the main focus. You're just like, I just kind of want to get into it and I want to get into the gameplay kind of stuff. So like a lot of that, like I kind of do agree with, but it's just for the games that I remember, especially for like the PlayStation or like, even going down to Super Nintendo, like some of those real games, and like unless it's a fighting game where like every character kind of matters in some aspect, really just like yeah, like I remember this character from this, I remember that character from that. Like Shadow Hearts would be a very different game if like if I customized the character and it's like, oh yeah, well I don't remember like what was so cool about the main character back then kind of.
and uh, we'll say it here first. I think we're both fans of Shadow Hearts. Remake that series, remake it, and do a good job of it. It'd be fun.
Like I'm willing to it though, but I think like games like Legend of Dragoon and stuff like that kind of need their shot first. Like those are games that are so old now that like they just need to be ported to be playable and kind of like the new genre, or like,
True
at least
that.
like in the like the new aspect, especially with like the Steam Deck and all that kind of out now. Which I'm doing my Steam Deck. That actually works out pretty nice. As far as kind of like playing some games, it actually works out really well. Especially to play a lot of these types of games, especially older
Yeah.
ones.
I was gonna say, especially for since you have that Steam back, I think you'll probably be more open and more willing to do Western RPGs and stuff in the sense, just because it's easier to do it on the go when you're on when you're at the couch watching TV. Like if your partner decides, oh, I want to watch this, you're like, oh, I don't really care about that, but I'm gonna hang out with you, and so you'll play a game, and that really helps it a lot with that aspect. I could see where that would help. That would help me so much with JRPGs, because I love JRPGs, but the grindy part of it is the part that I end up losing time in, and then I get that. Always, like, it's never failed even since I was a kid, where I get to that moment where right when I'm playing the JRPG, I get to that one boss and I just kind of skim through the main some parts too fast, and so I'm under leveled, and I just get owned, and I'm like, ah,
Yeah.
all right, I gotta go grind.
And you know what? I think that's kind of curved now, like because I think there's sometimes you could be over level, like you're just playing like some of the side missions, you kind of do a few of that stuff, and then you come to a boss, and it's just not like it's more spectacle than it is challenging. Sometimes,
Yeah,
a lot of times you're just like, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, kind of thing. And I mean, for me, when it comes to the Steam Deck, it's actually the Metrovanias that I probably pick up a little bit more, or games where it's like I would probably enjoy it better if it was just on the go. It's like where
yeah,
I can just have it in my hand, play it, like Hollow Knight, stuff like that, just where I can just play it here and there and all that. Kind of get really into it because there's just some games where it's like I want to play it on, the PS5 or want to play it on the computer, but sometimes some of them just don't need it. Like some of them really don't
yeah.
need me to have the speaker system blasting just to kind of get a feel for it when, I'm also a headphone buff. So it's like one of those things I can do with it. And then sometimes I just, now that you have since like with like Nintendo Switch, you had games that can only work for it at all because like Nintendo's like, yeah, these IPs don't leave the bubble. Like at least with the Steam Deck, it's like, oh, I can try and mitigate or just sorry, like move stuff from my PS5, my Xbox, or PC that I would have like probably haven't played it because it's kind of on those platforms, and there are just some other games I rather experience to now to the Steam Deck. Like even like games like Multiverses, I actually played on there and it actually works really well. For a game that I'm
Nice.
just working on Wi-Fi and stuff, and I was just like, oh, okay, I can see it, and then it allowed me to test the buttons a lot better. When you're like just trying to see like how fast can I react, like how can I move, like how stressful is it on my hands, and actually it works better for my hands a lot because you're really kind of like right on top of everything. Everything's kind of really set in there. So like at least far as like playing with the Steam Deck, it actually works out really well on this button mechanics and stuff.
That's awesome. Um, I know our topic is like the best genre in gaming, and we mentioned our top ones already. What are some of like not some of your most hated genres, or you just completely steer from?
Let's see. What are some that I just? It's really hard. Uh, most like multiplayer shooters, I think, is something that I'm really not the biggest fan of. Like I get it. Like I used to play it a lot, but I think that's one of the things that I kind of grew out of. Like me and my friends love GoldenEye, and it's cool to see it like come back like kind of now and all that. But it's just one of those things where it's like when my friend asks me all the time, like, can I play Call of Duty for us? Do this, do that, and it's like I really just, oh, no, I don't want to. Like I just
Yeah,
never have a desire to do it, and it's just like I don't want to pay a game then like I know I'm not gonna play. Like I'm definitely not. Like there are at least some games I'll buy because it's like, oh, I may not get to it right now, but someday I will. And sometimes I might have an itch. But when it comes to like multi shooters, like stuff like that, like it never comes out of me that much. I'll probably play League more than I will probably play like a shooter.
that's where I'll go. For me, I'll go the opposite. Um, I will do multiplayer shooters stuff with that, but they're kind of the ones where I'm not. I steer clear from for the most part. The only one I would play a lot would be Destiny, but even then, when it came to the actual PvP version of it, that's one thing I would, unless I had to go into it, I would go into it and I would have a little bit of fun, and then I would just drop out and I would do the PvE aspect of it. But I've, it's not that I hate the genres of this one, but I just like that I've always had bad experiences overall in the long haul of it, and that is the MOBA genre. Like I love it. Like I got into League and I got into it for a little bit and I enjoyed it, and then I even tried switching to the Pokemon Unite when it came out on the Switch, and I was like, oh, this is brand new. I'll be starting from the beginning, you know what I mean, with everybody else, and I started playing it. I was enjoying it, and then I just like my brain just kind of goes, okay, you're doing the same thing over and over again. You're done. There's no. I know your challenge is to beat the other people, but to me, my brain goes, well, that's not really a fun challenge to me. It's like it kind of becomes mundane to me. I just do the same
Mhm.
thing over and over. Even if I'll even switch roles within it. Like, oh, I'll be a jungler, I'll be in the top lane, or I'll be bottom lane, things like that,
Yeah.
just to change it up. And I'm still like, well, I'm still kind of doing the same thing. So I'm kind of over it. And that's the ones I've gotten to a point where I just kind of steer clear from. Where I know there's another one that will eventually come out, or like every once in a while, someone like when K-Pass had the whole, oh, you get all the league stuff and everything included. And I was like, oh, I should jump back into it. And I'm like, yep, nope, I'm gonna step away from this. I don't want to deal with it. What about you?
So like I like MOBAs or like a lot of the aspects that are like kind of make them interesting in the first place. Like Pokemon works because it's like, hey, I have over 800 characters I could put in this game. Like little bit by little bit, we can make them work. We can give them different outfits. It's like it's a real perfect setup for Pokemon to kind of really abuse. And then when you look at League of Legends and what kind of made them different from Dota, you have a lot of characters that you really remember. Like the style and format was, I feel like, it was a little bit more simplified. um but it was just kind of like the aspect of like, oh, there's a lot of stuff I kind of really care about when it comes to these games. I like kind of like the lore, kind of like bringing stuff like that. Probably the only thing is, like, I would agree with you, is that if you're a guy that doesn't want to kind of do the same kind of mundane things, because it's one of those games where it's like you're probably only going to really enjoy it to the point where you figure out what role you actually want to be and get good at it. Like, not everybody, wants to be the support, but if that's what you want, to climb and do a lot of this stuff, are more likely gonna like fall into it. And some people are like, well, I want to be the jungler, like I want to be, top lane, I want to be the carry. And it's like people want to be the one that sound exciting, but some people just don't. They can't do it and stuff like that. And they're just some things where you're just not really good at. And I think that those games kind of really kind of put you in that box pretty early, where it's all like when you're the guy who has to kind of do like the big moves and stuff, you're like, well, can you do it? Like, can you actually fulfill these roles? And you're like, maybe not as much. And I think that's probably like the only thing about it. But I don't really knock it for that. Like, it's like it's one of those things where it's forces team based cooperation. Like, that's why it's always a good thing to play with your friends. Like, it's one of those things where solo queuing and playing with random people, I think it's where kind of like that kind of turned for the worse. So like just jumping in random matches. When it's like a shooter like Overwatch and all that, like I don't think it matters as much. And it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, people are always gonna be ugly no matter which one of these games that you play. Like,
Right.
like you'll have somebody just kind of like spam you for whatever reason, or just like you're just like hearing it, just beat the shit out of it. But when it comes to like the kind of which when it comes to playing the two, like I just seem like, to me it just seems more like the shooter genre is just like really like, it's just different guns, just like nothing really is really enticing. I don't really care about kind of the background stuff. I don't really care about the world. I'm glad they have a story mode now, but like I don't like it. There's not enough for me to really hang on to it. But like games like League of Legends, games like Pokemon, they're going to keep coming out with content. They're going to keep coming out with new characters. They're going to try and explore what those characters are, what they do, and how can they change the game and stuff. So it's always going to be a fresh thing. It's not like, oh, let me throw a flamethrower in the game. Let's see how that changes like the meta. Like, it's gonna be
Yeah.
more like, well, this character can pull this. Let's see if he completely destroys the game. That's completely sucks because it's like there's no way to fit this character. Or can we do something where it's like actually becomes very prominent depending on who you're with? And I think I like those kind of different strategy kind of mindsets a little bit. That's why I kind of really appreciate those, especially when I used to play like Vainglory a lot. I think that was like the MOBA that I play constantly because it was on the
I
mobile
remember
device,
that.
and I like the 3-on-3 more than I like the 5-on-5. Like, you just have one person per role, and then the character selection, all that was pretty kind of easy to kind of muster and do some more funny stuff.
I remember you would constantly send me invites and stuff like that to play that game, and I would do it every now and then. And you'd be like, "Come on, get on it," and I'd be like, "Yeah, right now," and then I just wouldn't.
Yeah. Okay, it was just all like, you didn't. The one thing I liked about it, you didn't really need a lot of friends to play it. It's like if you had
Yeah.
a good friend group, then like a lot of people kind of jump on it. You can kind of get better together, and it was just kind of nice to kind of really like try, kind of do it and stuff like that. It's like, oh, okay, I can play this, you can play that. Some people like the characters that they liked and stuff like that, and it was just really fun. Like when it was like on my phone, it was incredibly accessible. Like I didn't have to boot up the
Yeah.
computer. I didn't have to do like a long thing. Like it would just literally like I could be at school and play, like, or I could be, waiting for food and play. It was just one of those things you could really jump into it. And it was crazy. It was just like, oh, I didn't really think that I would like it as much as I thought I did, but I really did. And it's
Eh,
like it could get money out of you in a little bit. And I think that's
Yeah.
probably the only thing that's kind of scary about those games. It's like, when
Yeah.
you spend some money on it and you're like, okay, maybe I need to kind of think about this a little bit better.
Oh, that's one thing like I love, and that's what like got me into MOBAs in general. Stuff like that is like the world building they do with just like the simple aspect of the game, the characters they develop for the game, the aesthetics and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Whether it's Dota 2, League of Legends, Pokemon Unite, and stuff like that. Like I love all of it, man. Like I love it. I love the characters. I love the designs. I love the costumes. You know what I mean? Everything like that, and that makes me want to be part of that world. But when I actually play the game, that's when my brain just goes meh. And I'm like, oh, like me personally going, I want to do this, and then the rest, and then everything, like my brain just goes, no, and I'm like, okay, but I'll look at it from afar. I'm a handout. Like I'll watch like the big league tournaments, stuff like that, because they're fun to watch. They're cool to see the world championships and stuff like that, and it's crazy to see how the characters they use. But it's definitely a game where or games that I'm not gonna keep up with the meta of who's what you're supposed to use, what teams you're supposed to use, and all that stuff. That's where it gets too much into it, into the weeds, and I'm like, all right, like I see it, I appreciate it, I wish I could be a part of it, but it's just not gonna happen.
There are some games like that where you just look at it and it looks awesome, but as soon as you try, it just kills your mojo. Like it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, this is not as fun. And I think it's because like when you finally see a game like that and you realize you jump in like season 2, 3, 4, whatever, and you're trying to play against people that just kind of steamroll the game. Like it's really hard. It's kind of like our conversation with fighting games. Like fighting games are dope. I love fighting games.
Yeah.
But fighting games just have a high curve, right? Like they just a lot of times if you're not playing at the very beginning, the if they don't have a good way of like matching you with the right people, you're always gonna find somebody that's just gonna hurt, Hulk punching you down to to the floor. And as much as like, some people like, oh, like I love to try to get better, I love to try to do this, and then great attitude for a lot of that stuff. Some people just don't want to deal with it like all the time. Like, it's just like just how some people, even though Elden Ring was game of the year, people don't want to play it because no one really wants to kind of go through like it's all good and stuff, but like the losing the sake of losing and then call that a feature is not, some people's idea for a game in them. They're just not gonna
Right.
put up with it. So there's always like aspects of it where it's a whole drum will just kind of just kill your mojo. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is not for me. Like I really love it. I love everything they like about it. It's just I can't be a part of it.
And it's funny because like I'm a huge fan of like fighting games and stuff too, and it's the one genre where I differ from a lot of other people because I know it's competitive. I know people are very serious about it and stuff like that. But when it comes to fighting games, man, like I could just play in them, jump in them. I could get my butt whooped over and over again. But when you have like the right set of friends, they'll like kick your butt with their main characters, and you try and see how you do against them. But then they start branching into other characters and like, oh well, I'm gonna try this person, and then you keep sticking with the same one, or even you change it, and then you actually finally beat them, and you're like, oh, I got you. What's up? You know what I mean? You get to do a
Mhm.
little fun trash talking and stuff like that.
And well, I'm not sure if I really go on that one though, but I just kind of realized, we've been kind of talking about kind of like our favorites and stuff like that. Yeah, we haven't really introduced what the video was about as far as like actually kind of get into our title and stuff, or at least to our main part. Which I guess this is probably the great way to have like a tangent on something is when you're talking about something a little bit deeper, but don't get to the point. But let me kind of cut you off and kind of actually talked about that, is because our video topic is what is the best genre in gaming. We talked about kind of what we like, what are the things that are interesting about it, and kind of what are our killjoys and stuff. But I think me and you have a good opinion on some of them, or at least opinion that we kind of hold dear and stuff. And it's always good to have more than one opinion. So I have 10 genres for us to kind of scroll through and kind of really kind of talk about, how we feel about it, what makes it good, what makes it bad, and what makes it kind of like bad for us. I think that's a good way to kind of go about it. And I think the first one that I have here is actually sandbox games as a genre. what is your feeling on the sandbox genre?
Sandbox genres, and to me personally, would probably give me, depending on what kind of sandbox, a 5 to 7 rating, being like one lowest, 10 to be highest if I put it in that way. Because sandbox games like um, Assassin's Creed and stuff like that are ones that I usually tend to stay away from, that we've talked about in the past and everything like that.
Hmm.
But if I jump into a game like Destiny 2, where your PVE version of it, or even kind of like a, not a MOBA, but a online multiplayer uh, RPG, to kind of give you that sandbox idea where you just get to go in, do what you want, and then build your character as is. That part of the sandbox I enjoy a lot. So it's really like a weird spot for me because I do like the genre, but some parts of it turn me off from it, and some parts don't. What about you?
And just to help out kind of viewers who are listening, pretty much sandboxing in itself is just kind of like um the best way to say it is it always happens in a big single area, and the area itself is mainly the game. So like kind of like Spider-Man, where it's like it's all in New York, doing stuff and just in New York and stuff, and that's kind of really the main thing, and kind of like that. That's kind of like the main kind of line for like the definition of a sandbox game. And honestly, for me, like I give it an 8 because for me, like a lot of great games that I like playing, like Spider-Man, have all really been sandbox games, and it's to me it's very easy to tell when a sandbox game is bad. Like you said, like with Assassin's Creed, it actually has both, right? There's the
Right.
aspect of like it could be really good. They try to do stuff in very noticeable cities, big areas, like, hey, we'll take you back to this. Because it's also kind of like a history buff kind of thing. Like, we're about this time frame. We want to kind of avoid or be around the stuff that happens in this time frame and then kind of be involved in that part of history. But like games like Assassin's Creed Syndicate, like was just kind of like, hey, don't you want? I think it was in London. Like, don't you want to be in London, do all this cool, and then do all these half on half mafias, that kind of thing. But it was just such on repeat where it was just kind of like we just need to make the map just look blue because right now it looks red. We don't like red. We just got to make it look blue. And that to me is like when like the main game is just that, and you're just like doing that enough until like a main story point kind of hits in. Like nothing feels like it's like a good detour to like a story. That's kind of what I was like, yeah, this is kind of like a bad way of doing it because then it gets grocery list shopping kind of aspect. And then since you can't go anywhere else, you're just like, well, I'm kind of tired of London. I don't really want to see any more of it. Like, take me to other places. Now, I just need to see something else, and it's like that's kind of like the trap in sandbox games when you're kind of tied in that. So for me, it's like an 8 because there's a lot of times where it's like you can be okay with that and also be kind of immersed in kind of the stuff that actually happens, especially if they do a good job of the city. Like now, Night City, I think it's pretty much close into that when it comes to like Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Whereas like the city matters, like what happens, where you're going. Yeah, you have the outskirts, but they're around the city. They're just like the moon to the earth. They're just orbiting around the city, so they're just as important because they're pulled into what the city does. And so that's what I kind of like about sandbox games is, you can make a great thing, you can go through a lot of good story and stuff, but you can also weed out some that are like this is a bad example.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, what's a sandbox game that you do like?
A sandbox game that I do like, I love Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, even though I kind of not poop on the series, but always talk like how I don't like the series, stuff like that. But I played a lot of 1 and 2, like a lot of it, because it was just so fun to. Those are one of those games where I actually try to get every little check mark I could, every point, high point I could get, and stuff like that in those games,
Mhm.
because that gameplay at the time set was just something kind of new, fresh to me, and definitely different that I just really enjoyed.
Yeah, like when you first get into sandbox games, and it's definitely a very different experience. You tend to like a lot about a lot of the stuff because it's always feels like you have something to do. I think it's just when you play a lot is when you start kind of picking up stuff. And I think Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 kind of came in at a time where we were still liking like Grand Theft Auto, we were still liking like some of those other games like that. For me, it's kind of the same. Like I've always kind of been an Assassin's Creed kind of buff in a lot of aspects. But I mean, I love the Horizon Zero Dawn kind of way of doing it, even though I really can't tell if that one's really a sandbox game because you are going to a lot of different areas. You're like seeing different towns and stuff. So like I'll probably kind of limit myself to games kind of like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, where you this time you were just like in the one place and you were trying to handle stuff, and then you start doing oh, let's go and we start bringing up the Brotherhood from scratch kind of stuff. And I think that I really like that when there's like an actual like ongoing thing to why you're doing it this way, why you have to be here. So I think with that, um, the second one I kind of want to go to is real time strategy. Now, I'll take this one first. Real time strategy is something that I used to love as a kid. And the game that's always going to come to my mind is mainly like StarCraft.
Oh yeah, I'm the
Um,
same way. I loved
like
StarCraft as a kid.
like I probably won't play StarCraft anymore, but to me, it's still one of my highly rated games, and that I will probably not think of any other game like in that genre outside of that. There's other ones like Warcraft, Age of Empire, and I'm like, nope, none of them matter. StarCraft was kind of where it was at. StarCraft was great multiplayer. StarCraft was like a lot of the stuff that I liked about the genre was really good. However, that's kind of where I end on that because I don't really play those, and I don't find them. I don't find the idea of something that takes longer than turn-based action to be appealing, kind of thing. So to me, that's still kind of more of a six, and that's only because StarCraft still exists.
uh, I would give it a little bit higher, probably like it's gonna be like a solid 7 for me, because I was huge into them when I was little. That's all I played all the time. When my parents finally got a PC, I would
Hmm.
just play StarCraft, and then from StarCraft I would switch to Total War or what's it called? What's it called? Age of Empires. You said it. Yeah,
Hmm.
those were the ones that would really go to it, and like even coming up forward and stuff like that now, like I'll still go back to Total War every now and then. Like I have a couple of them still downloaded on my PC, or I'll delete them because they're older games, but I'll re-download them and I'll dabble in them for like maybe a good weekend worth of play and stuff like that, hours wise, or a few days and stuff like that. Where when it comes to those games, like they really enjoy. I really enjoy them. I love when they get more complicated and you start adding new things to them to like um, what's it called, to build like resources so you could get stuff developed into this. You can actually go out to the battles and stuff like that. Like those things are really what I really enjoy. So it would be a solid 7 for me on those, because I won't dabble to them as much anymore. But if you get me hooked into it and get me started on it, I'm gonna be playing it for a solid good time.
Gotcha. So the next genre that I have to be hit on a little bit, shooters, both like first person and third person shooting. I'll have you take this one first.
this one's gonna be another. This one's gonna be interesting for me because like I was a diehard Destiny fan for a long time, and so like that alone would put it high in the spectrum for me. But when it comes to most other first person shooters, I steer away from. I usually steer away from the Call of Duties. I almost never dabbled in the Battlefields. Um, oh, what's it called? There was a game that sounded like perfect for me when it came out, which is oh my god, what's it called? It was the first person shooter that had metal music behind it, and it was like rhythm based and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And like I was like, oh, that sounds like perfect for me, and I just never jumped it. Never, not even download that game and stuff like that. To this point where I know I still can, and I go, yeah, no, I could steer away from it. I don't have to worry about it and stuff like that. Um, I played. I will go back and play Titanfall 2 a lot just for the campaign and stuff like that in that game.
Hmm.
That is one thing where it took me a long time to get to play Titanfall 2, and then when I finally played it after like maybe 4 years since it had been out, I was like, oh, this is dope. And then I go back to it every now and then. I won't ever like beat the campaign every single time, but I'll just jump into it just to play it and get the feel of it because it's so fun to play. So I would have to put it probably. I think I'm gonna put it at an 8, even though it's not my go-to game and stuff like that. Like I have fun with the different aspects of first-person shooters compared to what everyone else usually likes about the first-person shooters, which is kind of
Yeah.
weird. What about
For,
you?
for me, like I'll say even after kind of like already talked about the kind of like the online kind of shooting part of it, really it's like it's always going to be between a 7 and an 8. Mainly because there are just some games that I'm just kind of like, okay, like I get it, like it's fun. I can see myself like playing Call of Duty's storyline and kind of like some of the stuff that you see. I can see myself, me and Denzel really love playing Gears of War together. Like those games where you get to play with a friend and play with your sibling, those are great. And I do kind of like those. But when it comes to like the games that kind of give me like the 8 score are like BioShock Infinite. Like games where they're like everything about this is so crazily good. And the only thing about it is just a first person shooter. But like the stuff that you do, the crazy stuff that you witness and all that, I think it works out really good for like those type of games for like a first person shooter. And you also get into like the more fun ones like, Borderlands, where it's like, oh, like how can we
Yeah.
just go crazy? How do we give you all these guns and stuff? And then you get into the Fallout. It's like what are like the crazy things we can kind of do in that aspect of like the kind of taking parts of survival and all that and kind of building out a character and stuff. You starting to really kind of like those. And so I kind of like a lot of those kind of like sides where it's all like, there's something really more memorable about these games. I said that completely wrong, but
Memorable.
yeah, there we go. But it was just one of those things where it's like there are the times where it's like I feel like they're great, like they like everything about this is awesome, and then there's just sometimes I'm all like, okay, this is like the set standard for like if you want to get some games onto your console, you want to get some games, kind of out there, just throw a shooter in there, make it good, and there you go. Like it's just kind of one of those like it's like a staple. It's like the old trusty faithful that a game developer will pull out. Be like, what can we do something that we get people to play for at least like 3 months? Whip out a shooter. Like it's kind of like how EA is still kind of like around and stuff. It's like we still on Bioshock, Star Wars Battlefield. Like we'll just keep pumping out these games. We'll make it all work somehow. But those are probably like it's a 7 or 8 because I was like I want to be fair to it and say like it's just a solid 7 for the how it kind of wins and stuff. But then it's like, oh, but I really did like games like Bioshock Infinite, and I want to play Atomic Heart that kind of came out just recently.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, I like shooters. They're just some of them where it's like, the live service ones, or some of the ones that are kind of just continuing just for that aspect. I just don't see myself really into it. And
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest like CS:GO and all that. Like, I'm not touching that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not
Rainbow
anywhere
Six
even near that.
Siege.
Yeah, like there's just some of them
Yeah.
where it's all like this sounds cool, but it's like 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 I don't want to put gotcha in the shooting, like or like I don't care about the gun as much as I care about some of the other stuff. It's like it just like some stuff like when I see like other people, I'm just like yeah, I know like that's kind of like a joy kill right there.
This would be like a small question between these upcoming genre and this genre we're talking about right now, which is, what do you like? What is it that never got you into Overwatch? Because Overwatch is a first-person shooter, but it kind of has a similar MOBA aspect or arena aspect to it.
I mean, I played it when it came out. Like I had the collector's edition and everything. Like it was just one of those things where it's like what really got me, and it's something that Blizzard does well, and that's really kind of getting you so interested into the characters, kind of
Yeah.
really kind of targeting the stuff that kind of makes it look cool. And I know some people like later in the years like, oh, we're not so big in like the hero thing. But I mean, like games like Valorant are so prevalent. Apex Legends is so prevalent. It just shows you what it means by when you have different characters. They're just, they have like their different quirks, they have their different all that, and then they have kind of ability that kind of works, with their quirks and stuff. Blizzard sold Overwatch well, and so for me to get it, like I feel like it did a really good job of bringing like a new type of game. What it would be like to have shooters that actually had roles that they had to do and actually had to do a lot of the stuff. But it was also one of those things that I kind of talked about MOBAs earlier. The more you play it, the more you're kind of like, like yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Like in some cases, like I feel like, hey, I should have killed this guy, but then you realize, oh no, your character's not really good for that. Like I was wanting to play Lucio, and like Lucio just has a pretty random quirk to it where you have to do particular things, and sometimes I like to do DPS. Like I just sometimes like if I shot you in the head, you shouldn't be moving any. So it's hard to play like certain characters where like you kind of really miss time their attacks and do the wrong stuff because you're trying to do something else, or you're so much into your own play style that you're just like, yeah, like some of these people I can't do it. So like it sucked when it's like, oh, you have a favorite character and you're just not good with it, stuff like that. And so it would just get like that. That kind of just died out over time for me. So like it did a good job of getting me into it. Just didn't do the best job of keeping me. So with that one, now that we have to talk about it, I think this is probably the best segue, and that is the actual MOBA genre, multiplayer online battle arena. Um, like I said, like I played games like Vainglory, and I played the hell out of it. Don't play it too much anymore, and I couldn't really anyway because I think that Vainglory is definitely dead now. And I think
Oh,
that's just the developers. There was a lot of stuff wrong with like what the developers are doing and how they passed the game, which I was just trying to figure that out. I was like, wait a minute, like I don't understand why they went that route. And now no one can play it. It's just one of those things. And like I said, like I like League of Legends. I probably even still have it installed on the computer, even though I like refresh my computer. But it is definitely is like a 6 because it just has that kind of barrier. Like one thing I didn't like about League of Legends was that you had to get the ruins and stuff. Like playing as a new
yeah.
player and stuff, you had no ruins. Like you weren't. It was really hard to fight characters when you had the best character, but you didn't have the ruins to support it. And you fought like someone else's, like which would have been like your worst matchup, but you lost because you just don't have the ruins. Like you don't have the stuff to kind of plus into it. And there were just sometimes you could just really get embarrassed, and it's really kind of not really like the best feeling. So it's especially when it's a game that people like to dogpile a lot and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You're just kind of like, well, that kind of sucks. But it's just one of those things like, okay, whatever. It's just one of those things like I really like it, and I love that there's stuff about it, and I love that League of Legends kind of branched into other genres. I'm really excited about their fighting game, coming out. Like really want to see how that actually works out. But it's one of those things where it's like, I'm okay not getting into it again. Like I'm okay. Like I spent a good time with it. It was a nice college project. Like it's just I don't have like kind of like the same kind of enthusiastic for it. So it's like it's a 6. Like because even like new style ones, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like giving it a try. Like it just don't.
Well, MOBAs are. I'll make this kind of quick for me. Some of this I kind of talked to him about them earlier, but I'll put it like maybe at a solid 5 for me. But MOBAs kind of remind me of like that's a game I would really be into like in my early 20s and stuff like that. Once you hit into your late 20s, you're like, maybe I'm gonna start bouncing out of it, and then you come into your 30s, and for some reason, somehow it just uh, pops out of your brain like you never played it and stuff like that, and you just
Yeah,
go, "Oh, I see it," but
I think
I'll
half
leave
of
it
it is
there.
because you actually get physically older, and then some stuff you're just not quick on. I think that's why I kind of like Vainglory because everybody had to mess with like jank, touch controls. And
Yeah,
I know a lot of people wanted to have, well, let's play it on the PC, play it on PC. No, I don't want that stuff touching the PC. I don't want no people cheating with keyboards and mouses and be like, oh, it's so inferior to play, or no, it's the best way to play or whatever, right? Is all like, this playing with touchscreens is garbage. But like, no, that's the point of the game. Play it, grab it, touch. Like you're touch the enemy. Like you don't need to do like all the other stuff. And like I don't like that little efficient thing. Like that kind of ruins what was special about in the first place. Like it's just like ugh. But it is one of those things where it's all like, yeah, when you start getting, our age, like you're like, man, my fingers just don't move as well. Like I'm realizing that with multiverses. It's like sometimes like I'll be in a good match and then I'll be at the end of it, my thumb is killing me. Like, it's like, yeah, you can't do that anymore. You can't catch up to this guy. It's so like, oh, but I'm Batman. I'm a fast character. I need to catch up to this guy. Like, I have to play aggressive. And it's like, nope, your thumb is not allowing you to do that no more. And so that's what it is. Like MOBAs is one of those games like you can't really chill back and just be like, "Huh, yeah, go ahead, do that. No, you're always like this. Like we gotta get 100% in it.
you're always in that meme gamer mode where you lean up in your chair, like, all right, it's time.
Yeah, like you're always at the ready, like because at some point it's like you, especially for like games like League of Legends, where it's just Christmas lights going all over the place. You got to
Yeah.
where am I in all this? It's like we're like, where does like you just see like five abilities kind of go off, like fighting each other. Like, I saw like a nice like still shot of it, and it was just like, yeah, like that's just like you just have to trust. Like when you get into those fights,
Yeah.
you gotta trust that you're faster. Cause that's the only thing that matters. Like, are you faster than what they did it? So yeah, there are some stuff where it's just funny, but it's like it's a young person's game. So I think we could probably skip on to that one. That one, that was kind of funny and stuff, but it is. I think that's more on the lower scale of it. Role playing games or good old RPGs, and I think just to be fair, we'll just wrap all of them in it because there are so many different types of RPGs: action, adventure, J, Western. Like there's just so many of them that kind of and they like to go in a circle. So if I think of the genre in itself, what do you give it?
That's got to be probably like a solid 9, because especially now that I'm heading more into like Western RPGs and starting to be more open to them and stuff like that. Like they're really fun to play. My biggest issue with them at this point is just trying to find the time to be able to beat the game, because I could put a solid
Mhm.
30 to 40, sometimes even 50 hours into a game, and I won't beat it, and then I just kind of drop off from it, and I come back into it, drop off, but I just end up never beating it, and that's to my own fault. I understand that, but like that's my only downfall. That wouldn't make it like my top. It's just that I think time wise is where as we are older and our lives are kind of crazy with everything we have to do. That's where it becomes. It's like, all right, cool. Like I love this, but I might not beat it, and I'm okay with that.
Mhm. I think for me, RPGs just have the biggest breadth of any of the genres. Like, not only could you make like a solid RPG, or normally you can make something that's really into it. The whole idea of an RPG element tends to make other games better in an aspect of being able to have like a crafting system, being able to have a leveling system, being able to have a skill set leveling system. Like it just like just different ideas from an RPG make stuff just look better and then kind of play better in some aspects. I don't think it worked for everything, but when you do find a way to kind of include it, I think it works out really well. So for me, it's a 9 as well. I dare say probably a 9.5, just because it's while it's not like the perfect, it's not like you can't that it's so much of a big pool of stuff. You could pick five perfect games and be like, yes, like I had this is enough. Like I can get a good enough of an experience with just these five, like without thinking about it. So I just feel like that RPGs are just stacked across the board. It's just
Yeah.
from country to country. Like if you don't like one half of it, you're gonna love the other. Then you're still gonna be able to pick five games from that pool and be like, yes, I like this. So it's just one of those things where I think to me, it's just one of the most expressive, the most like kind of in depth and kind of like it just affects everything around it in a positive way. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I totally forgot about this. I might have to change one of my answers before.
Oh,
But um simulation in sports games.
I could
Yeah.
start with this one.
Well, I'll take it for here first because
All right,
that's an even one. I understand. But
here we go.
I have to apologize for shooters because I'll at least play a third person shooter, even a multiplayer online one. What game I won't play is sports games and racing games. Simulation games, it depends on the simulation. Like I loved a game dev simulation that was on the phone and played it like 10 times over. But when it comes to like Forza, when it comes to like even some stuff like Rocket League, sometimes like at least Rocket League, I'll get into it. But when it comes to like racing games and like Madden and all that, they're completely off the table for me. I just don't even consider it. Like Mario Kart doesn't count. Mario Kart's
It
a party.
does count. That's why Ace in the card. It counts.
Mario Kart is a party game, just like how
They
it is
are
a party.
they are kart racing games. That is a genre, and it has the name racing in it, and therefore it's a
It's all right.
sport.
I mean, I'll probably give it to you, but no, like that's a party game in every regard. But when it comes to like other games, it's like that's just like those type of games I just don't even touch. Like to me, I want to say a 4. Like I just, it's
I can see
really
that.
because I have to really love it. in order to really be into it. I have to love the simulation stuff, and then there's just some titles that are nice, like Power Wash Simulator is kind of funny and that kind of simulation kind of style stuff. But like, do I really want to feel like I'm really racing and all that? I never feel like I've ever had that experience. I don't feel like there's not a monitor big enough. There isn't, a stick shift, close to a Mercedes one, where you could pay, $1,000 for that would make me still love this genre in any capacity. Like I said, Mario Kart is fun. Like I go bring it up. Everybody knows how to play. You just got to go straight. It's just a lot of the stuff is like works.
Sometimes.
And even like some like I think a golf game I played was actually not too bad. But like Madden, like I don't care for it. I was a Blitz kid, and after Blitz, I didn't care about playing football on it. I had stopped playing a basketball game since Super Nintendo. Like I just, like some of that stuff is like I dug the grave itself and buried it. Like you're just not coming out anymore. So it's like those are just one of those games where it's like it's not that they're bad, it's not like they suck. It's just like I just don't like them. I don't like playing them. I don't like investing into them. It's just not a thing. It really isn't. You can,
Yeah, this is where we're on total opposite spectrums on this one. I'll give it like a. I think I'm gonna give it a 7 because I don't dab into them as much as I used to, but I still go back to them. And there's one. It's just one of those games where a FIFA is a godsend game, and it'll eventually become EA Sports Club or whatever it's going to change to at that point when they lose their license, which is great because we don't need the FIFA part of it. As long as you have the players and the right clubs and things in it, we'll be good. It'll be great. But at the same time, I've played a lot of basketball claims of racing games I loved. I spent so much of my PS2 time on Gran Turismo 3 doing the freaking 500 lap freaking tracks and stuff like that so I could get those Uber cars and stuff like that. And Forza is one I always get into. I cannot wait for the new Forza Motorsport to come out because I am definitely going to lose my life into that. And I've already apologized to my kid and my partner to let them know you may have a hard time getting a hold of me every now and then just because I'm just going to be driving and cruising and trying to get that win. And Madden, I don't play as much, but Madden is a party game to me. Where that's a game where my friends like to play and stuff like that. So I'll jump in, I'll go with them. I have a good idea of it, so I could play decent at it. And then when it comes to the simulation part of games, those are where I drop off a little bit. But I do enjoy like Civilization is one of those games I actually do really enjoy, where it's like trying to build your area, make it as big as you go, see how big you can make it, defend it, your resources working together, all that stuff. Like I'm all about that. So this is a strong genre for me. That for some reason I like those games, even though I complain about like MOBAs being a mundane where my brain just doesn't click with it. This genre's like slower and you don't have to use as much effort of your brain, but it just works for me. It just works. It clicks.
See, the thing I liked about like when it comes to like Game Dev Story, that was on the phone, and it came out like really early Android kind of stuff
Yeah.
like that and stuff. It just like it's a game that's meant to be played over and over and over to see if you could do better than what you did like the first time around. And I really did enjoy it, but it's one of those games that you could definitely just get your feel of it, and it's not a strong enough representation of the entire genre to be like this is what I care about. Like it's like the roller coaster one. I forgot what it was called.
Oh,
Like that
dude, Roller
wasn't.
Coaster Tycoon.
I know some people like really liked it, kind of
Loved
get into it and
it.
stuff. It's like that's just I just couldn't see myself like paying for it.
Yeah, even to
Stuff
the
like
point
that.
where the Jurassic World simulation games came onto Game Pass. The first one I
Mhm.
played it, then the second one came on and I played that too. And I was like, "Oh, look at this fake Chris Pratt popping up. I don't care about you, Chris Pratt. I care about the dinosaurs. I'm trying to create some dinosaurs here, sir. Get out of my way. You're in my way. Jeff Goldblum, you're in my way. I want to play with the dinosaurs."
Like, get out of here. But I feel like they're just games that you could just get your fill, at least for me, really quickly because you go play it so many times and be like,
Yeah.
I think I completely explored this game. Like it's just one of those things where it's like they're good and stuff, but they're not like long lasting. They're not something where it's like I'll probably come back to it again. As much as I really loved playing at the time, like I just probably won't come back to it. And so there's some stars in this whole big genre. And honestly, I feel like simulation and sports should really just be separate because like there's definitely some that I'm more care about than on the other side. Like I just don't touch FIFA personally. But I don't like. It's just one of the things for me. It's just like, yeah, like it's doing all the right things. It's just I just don't like any of them. That's just kind of where I stand at. Right.
I guess. I'm just kidding.
It's okay. It's okay to have different opinions. It's all good. All right, but now we kind of get into this, and this is kind of like what I was talking about, separating some stuff. Puzzlers and party games for the next genre.
I could go if you want.
Oh, this is your turn.
I'll give it a 3. I like
Really?
I like puzzle games, like games that have puzzle aspects into them and stuff like that. But overall, puzzlers and like party games, like, and I know this is a weird thing to say because like my place used to be the party house where everyone would come over to hang out and play and stuff like that. But like, I will not go out of my way to buy these games or really play them or put effort to like learn them and stuff like that. I'll just be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. I'm done with it. Like, especially when it comes to like the mobile games and stuff like that, like all those puzzlers that everyone's into it. The only exception every single time when it comes to this is Tetris. Tetris is the one that I will play all the time, play different versions of it, get into that and stuff like that. But any of the other ones, even back in the day, like Bubble Bubble and stuff like that on the NES and all that stuff, like, no, I don't need them. I tried them, I got bored with them within 2 minutes, in, out, next, move on. Those are ones that I definitely just go, okay, I've tried the Jack box games, stuff like that, and
Yeah.
it's fun. And like I have more fun with the interaction with my peers and stuff like that playing than the actual gameplay of it and stuff like that.
So I say the bad thing about puzzle games and party games is they are games mainly that if they fit in their niche really well, but so well that it's really hard for them to deviate to other stuff. And I think probably rhythm games are probably a part of this. Just to kind of give it some fairness, is that when you have like some rhythm games and stuff that are like really need to get into and all that, they're just something where it's like it really works well into the niche that is in. But like other times, it's all like it's more of a mechanic than it deserves to be a genre. But when it comes to like when you're looking for like, hey, what do we play with friends that is not so like serious? That's where I throw in the Mario Kart. That's where I throw in the Mario Party. That's where I throw in like the quick multiplayer game. And the thing about when it comes to this genre is that there's so much of it, all over, and it's so
Yeah.
much of it that it's accessible. A lot of this stuff you don't have to pay for it to play it and stuff like that. Like, and then some games kind of make some of the things better. Like at least for party games, like I like Monopoly. I like playing Monopoly. I like the board game. It also works really well to play Monopoly like on the computer. When stuff could just move faster. Like stuff is just you don't have to wait for someone to count money. You don't have to wait for all this other stuff. You just gotta think, click, blah blah blah. Like, and we're all seeing it interactive. Like it works really good for games that would just be kind of like the same over and over. And kind of give them a different experience about it. But when it came to like this genre, I think it's a 7 for me, only because it's like it fits so well in its own thing that it's really hard to like ignore it. And the fact that it's like it is something that like I can get Laura to play. It's something I can get like other family members to play because like a lot of the stuff is just really simple. Like 3 match games are always simple. Like it's like a really good like how do you play this game? How do you play Candy Crush? Good. Okay, you're kind of halfway there with this game. Like Force of
Yep.
Elements was a 1v1 versus game, 3x3 game, and it's like as long as you kind of understood that, you're like, oh, okay, this is cool. I already know how to play this, and I can really get to do all the attacks and stuff like that. And there's just a lot of games that like utilize the system really well. Is it the best? No, it's like something where it's like I'm gonna remember like main characters and all that. No, but I think every time that I played a party game that I really cared about, I really liked it. Every time I played a puzzle game that I really liked it, and like I said, they're always accessible. They've always found ways for you to kind of play them. What's that? Okay, action adventure, and I think this one is probably like it is an 8 for me. I don't want to get too much into it because I feel like action adventure. What makes action adventure really hard is it's hard to separate it from an RPG outside of like some of the elements. Because like an action adventure game versus an action adventure RPG game has a very subtle difference. It's like a lot of times they're really like the one side of the same coin kind of stuff. But when you play,
The way I like to break them up is like, uh, Devil May Cry and Uncharted are action adventure games,
Mhm.
whereas like maybe Spider Man would be more like a action role playing thing because you have to update your skills and stuff like that in it and stuff like that. But it kind of tries to do that action adventureness to it.
yeah,
That's how my mind works when I try to separate these like that stuff. It's like action adventure. Okay, Devil May Cry, Uncharted. I know what that's like. Bayonetta is another one.
yeah.
Like
I,
that's where my mind goes to.
I think for me, it's kind of like that. It really the difference is how fast you get into it. Like how fast do you just get into what you need to do, and how much of the core gameplay is just that. Devil May Cry is a great example of it because it's just like you're a guy with a sword. What are you doing? Killing demons. Why are you doing it? My job, and I need to eat pizza the next day. Boom, get into it. And then it's like you're all you're doing is cock, the pop pop pop, and then you're kind of done. You went on to the next stage. Really
That's the life I
simple.
want to live right there. Life I want to live, killing demons with a sword and pizza later.
And then it's like you have new games like Star Wars Jedi Survivor coming out and stuff like that, where it's just like, oh, I like lightsabers, and I just want to do different cool things with lightsabers. It's like, well, what about changing your lightsaber too? Actually, I do kind of like that too. I want to change, like I want a cross lightsaber. I want some other kind of stuff. You know what? You're onto something. I'll play that. Like it doesn't really take a lot to make an action adventure game better. It just mainly like make sure the core stuff it just works. Make sure it's fun to play. Make sure you can
Yeah.
do stuff. And I think like games like that just work out really well in my aspect. Now I looking at something that said like Assassin's Creed is kind of under this category, and to me I'm like I can see the earlier ones when Origin started. I think that's probably like thrown away at this point. But I
Yeah.
think like and that's probably why I give it an 8, because I feel like I have a lot of highly acclaimed games like just kind of in there where I'm like I definitely play it. Like it's it's part of the rhythm game, but like Hi-Fi Rush,
Yeah.
nice to get in. Simple. You're a goofy guy who's trying to get his arm better, whatever kind of be the case, but you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. And next it's like, oh, now you just have to beat somebody up with a makeshift guitar. I don't really need anything else like that. You have to go that way. Hey, those things are trying to fight you. Are you going to die by them? No. All right, well then take care of them. It's like it's just let's do this. Come on, it's just that's what I love about those games. They're just quick.
Yeah. I would give it I've already kind of said most of my save for these and stuff like that, but action adventures I would give it exactly what we have a list on here. Like it's an 8. It's 8 for me. I love them. I enjoy them. I'm gonna play them, and I'm gonna beat them 9 times out of 10 because they're easy to go through. And I'm just as long as the core mechanics and gameplay loop is like really good and solid, and if the story is mid or like average, okay, I'm fine with that. As long as I had fun playing this game, I got to maybe do a little bit of button mashing or do some button choreography to do this, to that, to that. Yeah, I'm in. Done, sold, love it. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, they're always mainly under 20 hours. Like, no matter
Yeah,
which one that you play, they normally don't go that long. Unless it's like Assassin's Creed. And even then, like, you could probably beeline Assassin's Creed story if you really wanted to. It's just in the later games, it's a lot different to do that. But a lot of them are just quick. It's just nice. Like nothing to argue about. All right, so we're down to like the last two, and I think they're pretty interesting. Especially this one, survival and horror. I know the
for
two
me,
separate ones, survival and horror.
yeah. I mean, they're separate, but then they also kind of go hand in hand at the same time.
Yeah,
But this is a straight up 9, and then it's more of a 9 for me, literally for like the horror aspect of it. Like I love horror games. I love the horror genre. I love everything horror spooky, spoopy, scare me. Oh god, I might have peed myself. That's okay. I don't have to tell anybody. We'll clean my pants later. Let's do it. Like I love those games. I've just been unfortunate to play so many of them because usually when it comes to those games, when they would come out, I would not have the money for them at the time and everything like that. And then when they would later on be like, oh, I'll go back to her. I'll buy it later, and then I just forget to buy it, and I'm like, oh, and like they're usually the games that like for some reason they don't pop up on any of my algorithms and stuff like that. And so like whenever they go on sale, I never see that they're on sale. And I'm like, and later on I'm like, oh, that was on sale. I'm like, oh, I meant to buy it, but okay, now I have to wait because it's backed up to $60 for a 4-year-old game. So I don't really want to pay that much money for it.
Yeah.
But like I love them. I've always played them. I've played them ever since I was little. Like I know it's not a horror like game and stuff like that, but like my bread and butter was Castlevania because of the spookiness in it and that whole aesthetic. And from there, that just opened my mind to end up getting into all the horror stuff.
Yeah. For me, I think it's fair for me to say it's a six. Mainly because I do like the genre in total, but it's kind of weird. Like in some cases, like I feel like some of the scarier games are the ones that are not made the best, or like they just don't
Yeah,
have like the biggest thought behind them, and they end up kind of like playing to that thing. But horror games to me has always been like the B movie rated kind of things. Like they're not the best, and once the curtains are lifted, you kind of have an understanding of like, okay, this is fake. Doesn't really get into my mind. But sometimes you playing some of them just in the dark, you're just like, "Hmm, hmm,
yep,
maybe I don't like that as much as I thought. But it's just one of those games where it's like it has kings in the genre that you're always going to think about. Like you're always going to think about Resident Evil when you think horror. You're always going to think about, oh, I'm not sure if you will anymore, Five Nights at Freddy's as much, with how they kind of just go all over the place in their later games. But even the first game, I remember playing that, and it was just kind of
oh
like,
yeah,
hey, this was a nice, simple concept that worked. But it's just one of the things where it's like, yeah, like, hey, have you gonna play this new zombie game coming out? No. Why? The zombies. I'm tired of it. Like I'm not tired, I'm tired of like it's like I like once you kind of play The Last of Us and you kind of play something that's kind of different from like the Resident Evil kind of thing, it's really kind of hard to be like that's don't you want to do more of that? Like the zombies could be smarter and they could be hordes and all that. It's like, yeah, well, as days gone by, see how that worked for them. Like it's just like it's not a thing that kind of like really kind of grabs your attention as much. So it's as much as I like to kind of get into other stuff, is not as good. That's why I felt like the survival side of it, kind of what really saves a lot of the horror thing. And like we do seem like kind of better stuff with it, but personally for me, I'm like there are good games. I will admit that, but it's just not something like I'm definitely not going to put that in front of like a game that I have pending.
oh yeah. I mean, a perfect time is I have a horror T-shirt on
Mhm.
right now
I'm looking
in
at
the
that. That
middle
don't
of
even look like
February.
I mean, that don't even look like
No,
a horror
yeah,
t-shirt to
it's
me.
an
Like I'm
art
looking
thing.
at that.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how your camera's trying to blur it. And like,
It's
no,
too
don't show that to them.
spooky.
Yeah, don't show that to them. What's wrong with you? So the last genre, and I feel like this is probably one of the top genres in gaming, like probably arguably, and that is the platformer genre. This is the genre that lives and survives the entirety of gaming and at its whole. This is kind of like where the big guys started at, and this is like some of the ones that kind of like RPGs, how they're kind of little sprinkled in somewhere. Like that's the salt. Platformer games are normally the pepper.
Yep.
So for me, like they're always a nine. It's really hard for me to kind of come down to it because games like Cuphead, where it was just like it was great, like the style. It's just like with games like this, you can focus on other things about it to just make it look great and play it and really kind of dive into it and stuff like that. And when you play like other games where it's like you're just trying to get around and stuff like that, a lot of them are pretty nice. Um, I would say like, oh, you mean Crash Bandicoot one, Ori and the Blind Forest? That was great. There's just a lot of games that I played that I really do like it. I'm not even sure if I could consider it, but Jack and Dexter always seem to be kind of in that genre as
Yeah.
well too. Even though I can see them being in the action, but I feel like no, they kind of go a little to here. Like you just got to go to a place, do what you need to do, and you come back home. Like it is kind of like one of those things. And I mean, Mario still exists, and Mario's still doing better on his titles when it comes to like they're actually main titles like Mario Odyssey and stuff like that. They're really kind of putting like those kind of emphasis on that.
Oh
So
yeah.
what's your opinion on them?
The platformers are gonna be straight up 10 for me. Like I love platformers. I love platforming aspects and stuff of it. And the reason why I love them so much is because this is like what the epitome of games is because it's you with a controller just just trying to do the game and beat it. So it's completely only up to you and your skill. And I know there's other games that end up like doing some kind of multiplayer aspects and etc. and things like that. But when it comes to it, like this game, these games are like you have to beat it and you have to be able to beat it and you have to figure out how to do it. And with platformers, you know if it's a bad game because you're like, I should have made that jump. I should have finished that. I should have killed that boss. I should have done this, and that's how you know when like a platformer is bad. So like it's always one of the top 10 ones because it's if it's a good platformer, boom, in it, dumb, done. And like this game is dumb because I can't beat it because of this thing. And then you look up stuff, you're like, okay, yeah, it's broken. It's like okay, yeah. So this is why I'm gonna drop out of this game.
I will say platformers can get a reaction out of you. Like it's some of like the more like intricate ones. Jump King. There's like the people playing Jump King for a while. It's just like that's one of those games where it's all like just watching people is fun. Just watching people like try to make a jump and they miss the jump entirely and they go back like 10 hours of or like 10 minutes of like hard work that they did because that
Oh
just
yeah,
happened to be the bad jump to miss. And like they just kind of get that reaction for you. So like I just feel like when it comes to like platformers, like they're just really solid all around the time. And then I mean, they pretty much were console defining for like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and even when it get to Nintendo 64 kind of stuff. I mean, Sega's kind of best games were pretty much platformers and stuff. They're just one of those things where like they've always been such a good contribution to gaming and stuff. And it's really like the oldies way of playing games and stuff too. It's like that really shows like the age of stuff while like
oh
new
yeah,
genres were finally getting better and like it was really like hardware graphics that were really stopping you from enjoying a lot of them. Platformers like aspects were always enjoyable and they just kind of got better as other stuff got better without having to be like the craziest like I need the 4090 graphics card to run it. It's like
yeah.
it's always going to been like play this on the Switch or play this on a Raspberry Pi. You can find some way to do it but you can play it, and I think that's just one of the good things about like platformer games a lot of times.
Oh yeah, and the beauty of platformers, honestly, is like that's what honestly that's probably why I loved Destiny so much. Is because they started adding so much more like platforming aspects into this first person shooter game, and it was just one of those things that people didn't really think and do about at the time, and it was just mind blowing to players. Like holy crud, I have to go and jump to here, then do this far jump over there. Then as
Hmm.
I'm jumping, I have to shoot this to open it so I can land on this platform. It's like oh man, this is it like they again and again with their raids and like their dungeons that they build and stuff like that. It's what makes it like one of the top tier games to play when it comes to the shooting aspect because of having that platform part of it. So yeah, for me, it's gonna be a 10.
All right. And I think those are the 10 that I kind of wanted to talk about. I know there's probably some more, and we could probably get more to the weeds of it, but I think those 10 kind of really encapsulate kind of like games as it is. Because I think even now we already talked about Metrovania kind of off the side, but I feel like Metrovania kind of fits into like a lot of these, like Metrovania fits in platformer, Metrovania fits
Hmm.
in some action adventure. If you consider 2D, they could be an action adventure, stuff like that. Like I feel like there are some modes that are nice, but I think these 10 kind of map out the gaming scene the best.
Yeah, because like if you're gonna make a game, this is probably like the 10 genres you'll look at and decide what game you want to make, and then maybe add elements of another one into it.
Yeah. And mostly if you're really starting off like game development, like platformer is kind of like what you kind of learn to do first. And then it's like, okay, well, I could try and a puzzle game. I could try to do something else to see what I can do. But with that being said, we kind of got through our list. We kind of talked about some good stuff. And I think this is a great time,
Best time ever.
best time to start. But so we'll go ahead. We'll kind of call it here. Everybody, we really do appreciate you for watching this video. Sorry we weren't here to, be with you in person and all that. But if you could do me a favor, hit X on the like button so that way we can, have people also watch this. And, I think it's a good video. I think I want to see comments of what genres like and what you don't like. I like, start some Discord. I want to see the stuff that you don't like when it comes to like why you don't like
Oh
it.
yeah.
Just so we can see kind of back and forth on it. Because I think those are where like the more interesting conversations are, unfortunately. But sometimes it's just nice to really kind of argue an opinion and argue with mine. If you feel that you just can't agree with me, it's okay. Just you can always tell me I'm wrong. and I cannot believe you. But with that being said, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for watching Gaming Over 30 overall.